The average human from the Stone Age would look like an Olympic gold medalist standing next to you. Not because ancient people trained harder in a gym, because their entire life was the training program, and ours mostly isn't anymore. Researchers who've compared ancient bones to modern elite athletes have found something modern fitness culture doesn't want to admit. In several measures, our ancestors would crush us, and in some cases, they'd crush people who train professionally for a living. Start with the actual research, because the numbers carry this whole story. A team led by Alison McIntosh at the University of Cambridge built detailed 3D models of arm and leg bones pulled from 89 tibiae and 78 humeri, taken from women who lived across the Neolithic, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and medieval periods in Central Europe. They compared those ancient bones directly against living people, including Cambridge athletes who rode and ran competitively, plus a control group of sedentary volunteers who did no training at all. Bone doesn't lie about how it lived. Physical stress reshapes it across a lifetime, thickening it, curving it, hardening it exactly where repeated strain hit hardest. Read that shape correctly, and you can reconstruct someone's physical labor without a single written record. Neolithic women in that study had arm bones 11 to 16% stronger than modern competitive rowers. Rowers train up to 21 hours a week, pulling against resistance that hits 6 times their body weight on every single stroke. That ranks among the most brutal upper body training regimens in sport today, and Neolithic women beat it through farm labor alone. Compared against sedentary modern women, the ancient farmers measured 30% stronger in the arms, grinding grain by hand, planting crops, harvesting by hand, hour after hour, day after day. Built strength that outperforms a purpose-built modern training program designed by sports scientists with full access to gyms, supplements, and decades of exercise research. Leg strength followed a different pattern, and the gap matters. Across that same study, women's leg bones stayed roughly consistent from the Neolithic all the way through to today, tracking closer to modern non-athletes than to modern runners. That gap between upper and lower body tells you these women weren't traveling far or running long distances. Their strength came from repetitive, close-to-home labor, work that hit the arms far harder than the legs. Researcher Alison Murray, who worked on a related 2017 study, described the pattern as low intensity, but just over and over activity. Not one dramatic feat of strength, thousands of small ones, repeated for years without a break. Men tell an even older story, one that predates farming by a long stretch. Neanderthal leg bones showed density and thickness that researchers have directly compared to modern rodeo riders and hockey players, two of the most physically punishing sports that exist today. Neanderthal bones also ran straighter than modern human bones, rather than curved, a structural difference suggesting their skeletons were built from birth to absorb constant, heavy mechanical loading. Every day spent chasing prey across rough terrain, wrestling down large animals, and surviving violent physical confrontation reshaped their skeletons into something closer to armor than to the bones most of us carry today. Push the timeline back even further, and the pattern gets stranger, not weaker. One major study analyzing trabecular bone density, the spongy internal structure inside bone that responds directly to physical load, found early Homo sapiens averaging higher density than modern humans do today. Researchers studying hunter-gatherer remains from roughly 7,000 years ago found bone strength comparable to modern orangutans. That's not an exaggeration. Human bone can reach that level of density and strength. Modern humans simply don't load their skeletons heavily enough, consistently enough, across a lifetime to get anywhere close. Go back further still, and the strength only grows. Paleontologist Colin Shaw at Cambridge compared hunter-gatherer bones from 7,000 years ago against farmer bones from roughly 700 years ago, and found the foragers dramatically stronger. But neither group matched hominids from around 150,000 years ago. Shaw put it directly, something in the distant past produced bone strength that outguns anything found in the last 10,000 years of human history. Physical strength peaked long before agriculture, long before cities, long before anything resembling modern civilization existed. The obvious question follows right after that. Why Why did we get weaker, and why specifically once farming took over? The timeline maps cleanly onto the shift in human behavior. Foraging demanded constant, full-body movement across open, unpredictable terrain. You walked miles tracking animals, you climbed, you carried heavy loads over long distances, you fought or fled when a hunt turned dangerous fast. Farming replaced all of that with repetitive, localized tasks tied to one fixed plot of land. Leg bone size dropped noticeably at the exact point humans transitioned into settled agricultural life, and the internal cross-sectional shape of those bones changed right along with it. Bones stopped experiencing the varied, high-impact loading that foraging demanded every day, and they physically shrank in response across generations. Diet compounded the problem, running alongside the drop in physical activity. Hunter-gatherers ate lean, wild game and foraged plants. A diet dense in the protein and micronutrients bone formation actually depends on. Farming communities shifted toward grain-heavy diets, calorie-dense but comparatively poor in the specific nutrients bone needs to build real density. Weaker nutritional inputs paired with lighter physical demands compounded into skeletons with less reason and less raw material to build serious strength. None of this stays locked in ancient history either. Modern research backs up exactly why the decline keeps continuing today. Bone responds directly to load, and studies consistently show 20 to 30% greater bone strength in athletes competing in high-impact sports, football, hockey, distance running, compared to people who don't train at all. The mechanism that built Neanderthal leg bones and Neolithic farmers' arms hasn't vanished from human biology. It sits dormant inside you right now, waiting for a reason to switch on. Modern lifestyles simply stopped supplying that reason. We sit at desks, we drive instead of walking, we lift nothing heavier than a grocery bag on most days, and our skeletons respond exactly the way you'd expect, by doing less, because we're asking less of them. Testosterone tells a piece of this story too. Research tracking male testosterone levels found a steady decline dating back to at least 1987, a drop that researchers say doesn't line up cleanly with obvious factors like rising obesity or smoking rates. Something broader about modern living, the sheer reduction in daily physical demand, appears to be driving hormonal shifts ancient humans never faced, because their daily lives never gave their bodies the option to go soft in the first place. None of this means modern elite athletes are weak by any stretch. A professional strongman or an Olympic rower sits far outside the range of an average person today, and individual modern athletes can absolutely match or beat specific ancient benchmarks in isolated measures. But averaged across entire populations, across thousands of ordinary people rather than elite outliers, the ancient world wins by a wide margin. A typical Neolithic farmer, going through an unremarkable day of ordinary manual labor, built a body that modern specialized training struggles to replicate. Drop an average adult from 7,000 years ago into a modern gym, and their baseline skeletal strength would put most regular gym goers to shame, without a single supplement, without a single training app, without a single rep logged on a smartwatch. Strength at that level wasn't a specialized skill reserved for a select few in these ancient communities. It was the baseline. Ordinary survival demanded a level of physical output that today gets treated as elite athletic achievement, something you'd need a coach, a gym membership, and years of dedicated training just to approach. The real question isn't why ancient humans were so strong. It's why it now takes Olympic-level effort just to get somewhere close to what used to be completely ordinary.